Clint Emerson, always be the new guy. Lessons from a former Navy SEAL. Former SEAL Team 6, DEVGRU, NSA spy, author, and TV star. I had the pleasure of sitting down with the now world-famous Clint Emerson, retired 20-year Navy SEAL, who served with the elite DEVGRU, SEAL Team 6, and national government agencies. Clint is the only SEAL ever inducted into the International Spy Museum. Operating from the shadows with an instinct for running towards trouble, his unique skill sets made him the perfect author and teacher for us all to learn from to survive. Author of the numerous books, Escape the Wolf, The Rugged Life, 100 Deadly Skills, Combat Edition, The Right Kind of Crazy, 100 Deadly Skills Survival Edition, and many more, especially if you speak German. Clint and I spoke about the latest project, driving 11,000 miles across the USA in 16 days and filming the top people in the country and the world in self-defense, weapons, combat, and survival. He has launched this all on video at, check the link, it'll be at clintemerson.com, and if you check out the Ready Room there as well, but the link's in the show notes there. We spoke about his fellow SAS Australia TV star and double world record holder, Dean Stott, another guest who's been on the show, and Clint's story about getting to Australia was hilarious. You wouldn't believe it unless you heard it from himself. His insights into transition for veterans was insightful and very helpful for everyone. But what I found most interesting, aside from the comedian and the operator side, was his humility and lack of ego, which came from these rules he follows. Always be the new guy. I've written them down in the show notes there. Go check it out, and I'm going to steal the thunder. Clint was awesome to finally chat with, and very shortly after our interview, this happened. More than 12 tornadoes, literally a swarm, hit exactly where he lived. Check out that link for the news report on what he did using his Special Forces medic skills as well. You can find Clint at clintemerson.com. On Insta, links there, 100 Deadly Skills. And also you can check out Escape the Wolf, and how I originally heard of Clint literally almost a decade ago at violentnomad.com. Thanks for watching. Hi, I'm Damien Porter, former Special Forces operator, high performance living coach from eatwellmovewell.net, and you're listening to my Straight Talk Mind and Muscle podcast. Subscribe for more amazing tips, interviews, and wisdom from phenomenal guests, and get your free copy of my 5-day meal plan and exercise ebook at realketonesaustralia.com. This show is sponsored by realketonesaustralia.com, the best and most effective ketone supplement on the market to reduce anxiety, enhance brain performance, and supply twice as much energy as glucose. You can find all my former shows on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Google, Amazon, and Libsyn. Thanks for watching and listening. And we're live. Welcome to the Straight Talk Mind and Muscle podcast, and welcome to my guest this morning, Clint Emerson. Clint, great to see you.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm glad we finally connected.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I was just saying off camera, you know, I reckon you're just one of the busiest people out there. You know, for the listeners, you're an author of 7 books now. Your social media with what you're teaching, with The Rugged Life, with Escape the Wolf, all these things are amazing. Your audio books, your paperbacks, man, thank you for fitting it in. It's great to finally have you on.
No, hey, like, not a problem. So halfway around the world, it's all working out.
Look, your new book, Escape the Wolf, is out. That's phenomenal. We're going to go through those sort of things, but I'd like to step off because I can sort of paint a picture about you with your other book, The Right Kind of Crazy. It really sums SF guys up. That's a great read. I couldn't stop listening to it. That's really an autobiography of your life, isn't it?
It is, and it was the last thing I wanted to do, but the publishers, you know, they have a way of talking you into things using dollar signs. So I was like, fuck it. All right, let's do it. But I also made it clear that I wanted people to kind of take away some life lessons by, you know, laying out all of a lot of bad decisions, really. And so I tell people all the time, like, you know, what makes a great story is usually a bad decision, right? And so it's a book full of bad decisions that I hope people learn from. And even though it does have some of the SEAL stuff that everybody likes, I really tried to steer more into lifestyle and the humor and even the depressing stuff too. But yeah, I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, thank you. Look, it's great, and it will help people. Um, a lot of people don't realize it, but the veterans, we need to relate to people because we get quite insular, quite singular once we get out of the military. Brilliant book. Like you said, you're showing all the sides of us, the human sides, the authentic sides, which is great because, you know, back in the day, somebody writes a SEAL book, it's all about the hardcore warrior stuff. They don't see the other stuff. Um,
Yeah.
you know, we were talking about you on a show with Tony Blauer and I. We're talking about one of uh, the incidents happened when looked like you're going to get carjacked. We might get into that later on, but yeah, it's definitely helpful. The right kind of crazy. Dan Pronk is the same with his audio book. I think you know him from SAS Australia.
Yeah.
What makes it
Great guy.
authentic is showing that both those sides. Definitely talking about the lows. Pat Mack's the same. You know, he fell on his face more times than you care to admit. Um, we know you're here in Australia from SAS Australia. So I'm going to go back to your books and paint that picture. But what made you go into SAS Australia? Because you're a SEAL in America. You're coming over this side of the world. You're working with a bunch of Brits. How did that occur?
You know, hell, I don't even know. I mean, it was, I got an email. That's where it started, right? I got an email from the producer. Her name was Deb, great lady. And, you know, I get hit up a lot, and usually I don't pay any attention to it. And, but the way that she had written it and said, hey, this thing has been around for a while, it's legit, it's not a waste of your time. We'd love to interview you and see if you'd be interested in, you know, filling one of the positions. And then they sent some links to the UK, you know, version, and I'd never heard of any of it. So I went and watched Ant and Ollie and Billy and Foxy on the UK version, a couple of them, and then I responded and said, "Yeah, this looks pretty fun." Um, you know, and we did a Zoom quite like this, and then they were like, "All right, let's put you on a plane," you know, and you know, now here's the funny part. So I show up to LAX to take the direct nonstop flight to Sydney, right? It's LAX to Sydney. I'm sitting in the international terminal. It's brand new. So it's kind of got low light. It's midnight. It's got a lounge type atmosphere. It doesn't have that many flat screens that say boarding now or any of that, right? It's really clean in there with music going. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking out the big glass window at the plane that's going to go to Australia. And I'm the only one sitting in that at that gate,
Yeah.
right? And so I'm thinking, oh, all right, I guess maybe somebody knows something I don't. The plane's running late. Nobody's here to get on the plane. It was just really, really, really quiet and absolutely no indicators that this plane was leaving anytime soon.
Yeah.
Well, eventually I see, you know, the jet walk pull away from the plane. I see the plane back up and leave. And so I'm like, that's weird. So I walk over to the lady at the front at the desk at the podium and I'm like, hey, is that plane going to Australia? And she's like, yeah. She goes, are you Clint? I'm like, yeah. She goes, yeah, you're supposed to be on that plane. I'm like, yeah, I know. I was just sitting right there. There's no announcements or anything. And she's like, because you were the only one that was supposed to be on that plane. Australia
No.
is not letting anyone in their country. This was a government approved flight. And I
Wow.
was like, oh. So then I called Deb and I'm like, yeah, so I missed my flight and I watched it leave and I feel really stupid. But, you know, I had no idea that it was that locked down and there was all these rules in place over there and that no one was getting on these planes. So to me, it just seemed like I was just early, right?
Yeah.
Or, you know, maybe, you know, and I even went and looked around to see if there was a gate change, but man. Anyway, obviously 99% of that was my fault. So then I had to sit in LA for 4 days,
Oh,
and Deb got approved for another plane to take me. And so when I finally get on the plane, it's the active air crew that's managing the flight there, and then there's a second air crew to bring the plane back.
yeah.
And so I had an entire 787 to myself just to get me into Australia. And then when I got landed, I was like the only person in the airport, and everybody was dressed up in spacesuits,
Yeah.
and they escorted me to a police car to those luxury apartments. They put me in my apartment, and then they put a cop out in front of my door for 14 days and brought me like 3 or 4 great meals a day to my door. And yeah, and then the day that I got out of quarantine was day one of filming.
Holy
It's
cow.
crazy. No time to rehearse, nothing. So yeah, and then we just ran with it, 4 special operators, and we just bonded and started getting shit done, like we had done it 100 times before. It was awesome. So anyway, long story, but yes, I ended up on the show.
Holy cow, that's a hell of a story. I'm wondering what the service is like on the plane when it's just you on a massive jet.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. It's not bad at all.
Man, I've totally forgot it was lockdown, and people didn't realize that Australia was the most locked down country in the world. It was illegal for Australian citizens to leave the country.
Crazy. It was
Yeah.
crazy. And what's funny is when I land, I said, I'm coming from the US where we've got tens of thousands of cases of COVID. And I'm like, God, well, how many cases do you guys have here? It must be a lot. They're like, 536, mate. And I'm like, what? 536 cases, and you've gone to these extremes? Like, I was blown away. I was like, I can't believe that. No way.
Wow, that's a crazy story, man. And like
Yeah.
I said, just jumping straight in. That's the way we roll when we're on from such a high level operation, um, experience. We can just fit in, and you did. That was the other thing. Both my partner Jess and I were watching, and it was the first time I'd seen you outside of, say, Violent Nomad. So I became aware of you through Violent Nomad. I think it's violentnomad.com for the listeners, and we'll put it in the show notes with some great gear, but really low key, and some of the interviews you've done. But bang, you're straight up there on SAS Australia, and you're just fitting with the guys who've run that for years, and you fit in really well.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun and great guys. Ant, of course, just 100% energy, and he's super funny. And Ollie's just laid back and always like the wise man. And of course, Dean. Me and Dean were the new guys. Dean's great. Dean and Ant used to work together, so yeah, it was awesome to get in there. And then of course all the celebrities from Australia, great human beings.
Yeah.
Every single one of them was awesome. And I had so much fun getting to know them and kind of figuring out where they came from and who they were. But yeah, such a great experience. But who knows? We'll see if I end up back over there or not.
Yeah, man. Look, I'm sure they'd love to have you. I'll just finish off on that because I interviewed Dan Pronk, and one of the reasons, and for the listeners, Dan Pronk is the doctor on the show, but he actually passed Australian SAS Selection, which I didn't know before I interviewed the guy. Literally get to know people on the show, and I asked him the question of SAS Selection, actual military candidates versus the celebrities and versus the civilians he's seen, and what sort of product do you get at the end? So without giving away his answer, and literally you were thrown in on day one out of quarantine. What did you see? What were your thoughts at the end of it? The product you were getting, compared to what you'll see through buds and so on. Yeah, what was your idea of the quality of the person that made it through?
You're talking quality of the person made through on the show.
Yes.
Yeah. So I tell you, man, they the three of them just incredible athletes across the board, no doubt about it, you know. And and Lockie as well. Lockie is actually a fucking animal. That guy was crushing professional athletes and Olympic athletes, you know. And of course, he has his reality TV bad boy persona but he's actually a good guy. That's what's funny. I guess that's just something he does when he gets on the camera, but off camera, he's a great guy. But anyway, he definitely would have carried it to the end as well. But all of them, of course, paid attention to detail from beginning to end. They were always just kind of on it with everything. You know, there was really no like mental delay, physical delay, nothing with the three of them. Each one of them had their moments, obviously, where their weaknesses showed. But overall, I was impressed. I mean, just those two girls were just terminators. I think I gave them both a couple of nicknames. One, Ninja Rihanna, because she was so quiet, and of course the rugby girl. I just lost her, Millie. I mean, she was she was just a monster when it came to doing things, right? And then of course the dark horse, right? He was just quiet all the way through, did his job, you know, never bitching, complaining, just always in it and gave 110%. And that's all you can ask for, whether it's, you know, the Hollywood version of selection or real selections out there. That's all you're looking for. You're not looking for a person that is great at everything. You're looking for the person who gives it their all and just doesn't quit. And so those three certainly check those boxes.
Yeah, they really did. And it's amazing watching the show from my point of view. And uh, my partner Jess, she was a former international athlete, but not military, and like the reverse of what we do with our headspace. But literally, I'll say something that'll happen a minute later because we know what's coming. But those people that make it through, you just see those qualities. It stands out so much for us as that's what we require. That unrelenting pursuit of excellence and that human humility. You know, you talked about Millie, you know, she's not afraid to cry, and it's appropriate because she's still getting the job done. Yeah, it's really interesting to see that. Dan said the same thing. The quality of the people at the end of the pipeline is just the same. You know, if they're in the military, they'd be being picked for those units if they're making it through as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, it's a very fraction. You know, it's a very small portion of time. You know, the 15 days, but man, they for people that you know never were in the military or had any interest, they sure as hell perform like they really wanted it.
Yeah,
So you got to
they
give it.
really do. They really push through. It's
Yeah.
probably a great jumping off point to really paint a picture of you now, Clint, because you've gone through that pipeline and you booked the right kind of crazy goes through it, which is excellent. With the history of your childhood and what got you there, amazing stories. I don't want to steal the thunder of the book because I
Yeah.
sometimes I'd get home with the car. That's where I listen to audiobooks. I just sit there and carry on. So it's brilliant. What
Yeah.
let's talk through your military career. I don't want to get it right. So you joined the Navy and you've decided to go to Buds. Could you just talk us through your processes there?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd always wanted to be a SEAL since I was like, you know, 10 years old. And eventually, once I got done with high school and college here in the United States, I just had that itch and was like, all right, I got to go. Went to my Navy recruiter, signed the dotted line. You get shipped off up to north of Chicago for boot camp. Navy boot camp is basically just marching in the snow for 8 weeks straight. And that's about it. That's all I remember is we're always marching in the snow. I was like, what the hell is this? Um, and then you go to a specialty school so that when you don't make it through SEAL training, you actually have a job in the Navy. I picked medic, which in the Navy we call it a corpsman. And then, so I went to 3 months of the corpsman school, then checked into Buds, and I was in, you know, basic underwater demolition SEAL training class 203. You go through the 6 months of hell, and then you go. It's much different now, but you know, back then you went from there to then jump school. you've got your air quals to jump out of airplanes. And then from there, I went to additional medical school, and then checked into SEAL Team 3. SEAL Team 3, basically to kick off, the wars, did some deployments, and then screened again and got selected for a special activities program, which put me into a more solo type job, working alone at NSA. Did that for a while, and then ended up at SEAL Team 6, doing exactly the same stuff I was doing at NSA, and then finished my career right around, I think it was 8 years at SEAL Team 6, and that put me at the 20-year mark in the SEAL teams.
That's a little bit different than that standard, either into the SEALs and that's what you did, or into SEALs and SEAL Team 6. Can I just unpack that a little bit? I'm not going to get into the warrior stuff too much. We're going to get into some others, but
yeah,
it's rare for a special forces unit like New Zealand, Aussie, or 22 SAS. That's the one thing you're going for. With SEALs, you make it through SEAL selection and training, but you've also got these other units. You talked about the special activities, the activity you talked about SEAL Team 6. How did you find that compared, chatting to the guys or even working overseas from like 2-2, and that was a SEAL versus SEAL Team 6 versus 2-2 SAS? Can you just go through the differences there for us?
yeah, I would say, well, for us, that's, it's a tier 1 organization. It's the tip of the spear,
Yep.
just like, Pat was at Delta, and,
Yep.
you have those two units, both of which kind of do the same stuff, and same as no different than the 2-2. But for us, the specialty is more maritime.
Yep.
And, really it's all about, pre-war, it was all HR, hostage rescue, and that was the emphasis. Once the wars kicked off, then all these units were like, well, we need to get in on this. So, forget that HR crap. We've got some great operators that need to get in there and get in the game. So, of course, one unit's going to basically get what they want, and then get in the fight. And good thing they did. I mean, they did great things, all the tier 1 units. And but I would say, it's they're all the same. They're all the same. The difference is with our unit is we only allow SEALs,
Yeah.
right? So if you're going to go to a SEAL Team 6, then we only pull from current SEALs that have at least 2 combat operations under their belt before they are allowed to go there. And, and I think that is a key differentiator. Whereas other units draw from everybody. They'll
Yep.
take anyone. And if they make it through selection, then they get to go to OTC or whatever you call it,
Yep.
So I think that's probably, for us, we're proud of that, right? It's SEAL only, SEAL, 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 and we don't let any outsiders in.
Yep. That's a great explanation. Now, I'd like to ask you, how was it having to do BUDS, which is that hell sort of phase that you spoke about, and the training, and then you got to do another, I mean, you used the word screening. It's a very ambiguous and vanilla name. Was that a selection process to get into 6, or was it simply something else?
Yeah, there's a whole program, and I don't even know what the status is on talking about that crap. I've been out long enough now where I don't know, but I was different, right? So I'm very, very clear to say that the selection I went through was not your typical operator selection. It was different.
Yeah.
It was more focusing on determining for solo type operations. So I had gone through that, then, NSA. And then when I started doing some good things while I was there, the command heard about some of this stuff. So they literally came up and said, "Hey, we want you to come down and do this stuff for us."
Yep.
So I had this weird path that like I don't know anyone else that's taken a path like that, right?
Wow.
And so I ended up just rolling with it. And there's good and bad to that, right? So if you're a SEAL that didn't go through the operator selection, well, then you get a big target on your back when you show up
Yeah. Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Because they're like, wait a minute, this
Who's this
guy
guy?
got the special route. And so it took about 2 years for me to like gain the respect of those that I probably needed it. Just by continuing to do a good job and put my head down and follow the philosophy that I had the entire career, and that is always be the new guy, right? Always show up early, always stay late, keep your mouth shut, keep your ears open, ask lots of questions, and know that safety and performance are always measured no matter what you're doing, right? So
Absolutely.
it was easy for me because if you can put your ego aside and just be like, all right, I'm the new guy again, and then just follow that mantra, you get through special operation units a whole lot easier that way, right? Because the minute you start throwing some bravado around or attitude, or you're done, you're not going to last.
That's really telling, and that's come through with different interviews with the veterans. But that's humility, Clint. And you could easily come into that unit going, hang on a sec, just ticking all these boxes of your experience, and literally come in there with your back up and that ego on your shoulder. But for you to put your ego aside, that does put you in that good place, and then they can just look at you with competence. What is his competence? What is his performance? And that's what you're based on, rather than that ego side of things. And it's obviously shows through in the way you communicate to civilians. So we might move on to that. You've done these phenomenal things. You decided to retire out of that, or what sort of happened there when you have gone into your next phase?
Yeah, I always knew that I would do 20 years, and I had a good feeling I wouldn't, give our government more than 20 years,
Yeah.
So as I approached the 20-year mark, um, I started coming up with my plan, like, all right, well, what am I going to do next?
Yeah.
And so crisis management it didn't fall in my lap, but it wasn't something I was looking for. When I was at NSA traveling alone and working alone, I came back from one of my trips and I went to the CIA, I went to FBI, even inside NSA, and was like, hey, isn't there a course that kind of teaches you to be the gray man? Because I felt like I needed it in order to perform better in my job. And nobody had actually said anything at the time or taught it, right? So I compiled notes, and those notes became a 3-ring binder.
Wow.
And the job I sat in at the NSA was really strange. If I would do these oddball deployments, but when I was back, I was running a covert clandestine pipeline, which took people from all agencies, CIA, FBI, Secret Service, you name it. And I'd put them through this pipeline, teaching them a lot of the stuff that I had lessons learned when I was doing stuff, overseas. So I would just start handing out this 3-ring binder. I just handed it out to folks. And then eventually I was like, well, I should probably make this thing kind of look and smell and feel like a book. So then I found this self-publishing company.
Yeah.
And at the time, self-publishing, nobody even knew what the hell that meant, right?
Yeah.
But really what it is you take your manuscript, you send it to this company, and then all they do is format it so it can be printed as a soft back book. Real
Yeah.
easy, right? And so I thought that was super cool. And so then I had boxes of these books. And at the time it was only like $2 a book,
Yeah.
And so then I was still handing these things out for free, all my lessons learned, right? And then I got a phone call one day from a retired FBI guy, and he's like, hey, I'm a global security director. I want you to take everything in your little book you built, and I want you to teach it to all 700 of my top journalists. And I'm like, journalists? And he's like, yeah, I'm the global security director for the Wall Street Journal.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa. But I went ahead and did it, right? I took the book, I found some developer and I said, hey, can you turn this into e-learning? And they're like, sure, that'll cost you, $60,000. And I was like, oh, huh. Well, I'm in the Navy. I don't know if I can afford that, but let's go for it. And so he, they started building it. I knew I had a credit card that had a $50,000 limit on it. So I was like, well, I know I can pull this off, right? And so I 3 or 4 or maybe 6 months later, we had the e-learning built. I call up this guy, like, hey, so yeah, I built it. And
Yep.
keep in mind, we didn't have a contract. I didn't have anything saying they were going to buy it.
Wow.
Right. And so I just took this huge risk and built the e-learning, called up the Wall Street Journal, said, all right, it's done. Do you want it? And he was like, how much? I was like, I don't know. How much money you got? And he's like, you need to give me a price. And I'm like, yeah, all right. So I gave him a number, like $120,000. I basically just doubled what I spent on it,
Yeah.
which was stupid, stupid, stupid. But I didn't know what I was doing. And so anyway, the book became a company, right? So having Wall Street Journal as my first client, and now it was like I stepped out of the Navy, like not having to do contract work, not having to do anything. I was in the black, right? I had
Yeah.
$60,000 profit in my pocket, and then I just started racking up more and more clients. And now to this day, I'm still doing Escape the Wolf, which is the book was called Escape the Wolf, which then became the company. And then I just, as you mentioned at the beginning, I just re-released it. I kind of updated it a little bit
Yeah.
and re-released it just recently.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Um, and yeah, that's it. So I do crisis management for Fortune 500s, small businesses, places of worship, and a lot of private schools.
Awesome. Your videos, I do the How Not to Die series. You're doing the same thing back then. I remember seeing some videos of yours with an active shooter, using a belt, tying it around the door openers and closers, all these little things that um, are common sense to us or are natural to us to do, but that person might just think about it and it might save their life. Uh,
Yeah.
Actually, thinking about it, I used it in one of my courses a different way. This was a crazy story. Um, I'm teaching a bunch of real estate property people, and their job is to show properties, like leasing properties to potential uh, uh, tenants. Anyway, this one female, she asked the question about something about with a door. I said, "Well, run me through the scenario. What happened?" What happened was it's 7 o'clock at night, and she's like 22 years old, little female, and she's showing people this one bedroom apartment, so one entry in, and it opens up straight into the kitchen. And she shows these people
Yeah.
through, and it's all done. And she's done the last lot of people, and then one guy walks in, and he walks in, and he turns around, goes to close and lock the door on her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and she's like, "Holy cow!" And he locked the door, and then just as he locked the door, another a knock on the door happened, and another couple came through. Another couple of potential tenants came through, and that sort of saved it. So lucky. And she said, what could I have done in that situation? Because they ring their agent, their boss prior, so they know where they are, and they bring them after, so they're safe. But what about that time frame? I said, just go get a door wedge. I was thinking back in our CT role, when we go through doors and we need to leave them open. Um, Go get a wooden door wedge, and the first thing you do is when you open that door in the place, you wedge that into the hinge or wherever you can, and that may just give you that short period of time. And to be honest, I'd never thought about that, Clinton. It probably came from something I saw with you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so much you can do. I think those wooden wedges, those things, you can use them for all kinds of stuff. In fact, I'm posting a video. I'll tag you tomorrow, kind of discussing some of this stuff. I think you'll dig it.
Awesome.
But it'll be like I can always talk about the tactical nightstand and and improvising, right? But this will be the tactical door, and then also, improvising. I think it'll be a good little ad, especially here in the U.S. with all the active shootings going on. We've got more active shooters every year than we have days in a year. It's crazy.
Oh man, it
It's
is
always
a different
four
world.
or five hundred a
It's so
year
nice
now.
though to watch former SF guys like yourself, like Pat, uh, giving information away in order to help others. I interviewed Dan Cooper. He was Aussie SAS for 18 years, and when we started, it was like I won't even tell my mate that special trick I do to shoot straighter or do this. You keep the information there,
Yeah.
and then because he literally said 10 years ago you would have done that, but now you're just putting it out there because I think the ego changes and our intent changes, and it's just really, really cool to see our skills being used to help other people.
Yeah, yeah, man. I think it's there's by giving it certainly feels better. It's setting everybody else up that's paying attention to you for success and survivability. Um, and then in every now and then it leads to a client or two, right? I mean, that's so I don't go around knocking on doors trying to give sales pitches, right? It's
Yeah.
like if you're just giving information away, then usually those good deeds, they don't go unnoticed. So in some form or fashion, it all comes full circle.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Man,
Yeah.
you're an author of 7 books. It's brilliant. I'm going to go through them for the listener, and then I'll come back to the right kind of crazy. But 100 Deadly Skills, all the different editions: survival, combat, and the other two. You've got the Rugged Life, which is brilliant. We might talk about that. The Right Kind of Crazy, Escape the Wolf. Uh, it's just really cool to watch the success there. Um, the but there's one other thing you're doing now, which is I think it is for Escape the Wolf or for your video channel, where you've gone around and interviewed a lot of people in different skill sets. Can you talk to the audience about where you're at with that and maybe how to access that as well?
Yeah. So during the pandemic, that's when I was doing 100 Deadly Skills Combat Edition. And I didn't want to put a bunch of skills that Clint knows. I wanted to go collect skills from different guys that are experts in different worlds of combatives. And so I called up a bunch of guys and said, "Hey, you're sitting at home with nothing to do. How about I come stop by and we do an interview and show me your 5 to 10 of your favorite skills in your world, right?"
Yeah, yeah,
And so I had, Pat McNamara, of course.
yeah.
So I had special operators. I had, Hell's Angels type dudes.
Wow.
I had, the first American Ninja. I just had to have him because I totally idolized the guy when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Um,
Hey, I
and then I
probably know
had
that guy
guys
because
that
we're
were,
from the same genre.
yeah, you know who he is. And
Yeah,
yeah, Stephen Hayes, man, the
yeah,
guy's been around. He's a legend. But then I had, guys that are experts, pistol, rifle, sniper. So basically the whole book takes you from hand to hand all the way to sniper rifle, but it's all provided by guys who do it every day. So it was a lot of fun. So I did interviews. It was 11,000 miles across the United States, 16 guys in 30 days, right? So I
wow.
really didn't sleep because if you do the math, 11,000 miles and 16 guys and yeah, 30 days is either drive. I don't know if we lost our
Yeah,
connection
no,
still good.
we're
Okay.
back now. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah. So that was the best part because I was doing research, learning, and then collecting the content that now you've seen floating around, and then I did the same thing for Rugged Life. Rugged Life is all about self-reliance,
Yeah,
having skills that every American used to have every skill in this book. And it's all been since forgotten because of technology and stuff like that. But when you have something like a pandemic and supply chain issues and the economy going sideways, it starts to make you realize, like, wait a minute, I'm kind of like really reliant on a lot of outside sources and resources. And then you realize, wait, as a country, we're importing more than we're exporting. I mean, that's kind of scary. So, true freedom is like self-reliance, right? If you can do it all yourself, then the crazy world out there won't ever affect you. And so, Rugged Life was all about giving people the skills to dabble a little bit, see if they like it. You can just dip your toe in and go, yeah, this is actually kind of cool. And there's enough information there that you can just dive in head first if you want as well, too. Yeah,
That one
there you
right
go.
there.
Yep, that's it. Um, and so anyway, the bottom line is all the books is all about being self-reliant, self-rescue, and following the mantra that hope is not a plan, right? You got to have a
Absolutely.
plan. You got to have skills. You've got to maintain those skills in order to just, if a good day goes bad, you want to be ready for it. But let's hope that you never have a bad day, right?
Absolutely. I'd like to maybe regale the audience with a story that stood out so much for me. In the self-defense world, self-protection, you'd be your own bodyguard is something Pat talks about, which is great. If you're your own bodyguard, you wouldn't get into a face-to-face with a guy unless he's surprised you and jumped in front of you like some crazy guy. But and we hope it won't happen. It's all situation awareness, avoidance, all those things. In your book, The Right Kind of Crazy, you talked about an incident when you're driving down the road and you noticed a set of headlights and then something happened. I would suggest something didn't feel right or something felt off. Do you remember that? And if so, can you talk through that incident?
Yeah. That was leaving. So, you have safe sites and stuff overseas that you stay. They're not hotels. They're like, leased places, homes out on the town, so that you kind of blend in with the population. And so I was leaving, and there's the lights, that's kind of weird because it's early in the morning. You don't hear anything but the power buzzing through the power lines above you. It's that quiet, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then another anomaly is the guy standing next to his motorcycle, but all you can really see is the amber, right? When he inhales on his cigarette, you just see the glow.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that's kind of weird, right? These are, that doesn't mean anything bad, but hey, that's something worth cataloging,
Yeah.
right? And then you see the headlights, okay, catalog that. And then the next phase is, okay, now I need to confirm. Well, it didn't take much to confirm because as you approach, they try to block the road, and then it's very much a decision-making process at that point of, what am I going to do in this situation, right? Am I going to stop knowing there's somebody behind me
Yeah.
and there's somebody in front of me? Or am I just going to keep the momentum going and try and squeeze by on the left or the right side of the road, wherever I think I can pull this off, right? Because we all know how difficult it is to block a road with a single vehicle.
Yeah.
There's always drivable terrain to the right or left, at least to guys like me and you.
Yeah.
Like everything's fucking drivable terrain. So it's like you're going to have to block the street, the sidewalks, and 5 acres to the left and 5 acres to the right if you're going to really prevent me from driving forward. But and then you got to think, okay, I don't see weapons, but you always assume it. And it's
Yeah.
never feels good to have somebody behind you on a motorcycle that could potentially have a gun. Obviously, they're far more maneuverable. They could get up next to you and blast your, driver's side window, passenger side window. And so anyway, all these things running through your head. And then, of course, you got to start factoring this car up front that's kind of acting as a blocking force. And what's there? Is it one guy? Is it 4 guys? Are they all pointing guns at me right now? I don't know. It's dark out. So, so I decided, just keep my momentum, switch my high beams on, gain speed, knowing that, all right, worst case scenario, once I identify which side of the vehicle is the lightest side, right,
Yep.
which is the trunk, then we all know if you want to push a car out of the way, you're going to aim for those rear tires and you're going to push that thing and keep on going. So it didn't come to that. I ended up scooting right around the vehicle. The driver's side mirror got hit, a portion of the other vehicle, and then just kept on going. And at the moment, you don't know what's going on, and then even afterwards, I was like, well, was that something bad or was that just something weird?
Yeah.
Because in the covert world, you start to see a lot of what we call ghosts, right? Things you think are bad, but they're not. It's just because you're at such a high level of vigilance, you can see all kinds of stuff, and you can think that everything is after you or
Wow.
watching you or tracking you. But with a calm mind and with some experience, you start to go, oh, okay, that's a ghost. That's a ghost. That's a ghost. Ghost could be a squatter on the side of the road staring at you. If it's your
Mm.
first time, you go, man, that dude is definitely surveillance.
Yep.
But then when it's your 10th trip in that country and you realize, wait a minute, there's squatters all over the place, right? That's what they do. They're just sitting around all day. But, so it really, a lot of factors come in there as far as experience and training and, and ultimately when you're alone, all the success and all the failure resides solely on you. And that's what I got addicted to is, all that potential failure is just fucking awesome. And, but to this day, I don't know, was that going to be a bad situation if I would have come to a rolling stop and it would have been a scam? Was it criminals? Was it terrorists? Was it foreign intel? I
Yeah.
don't know. Right. But you have to assume worst case scenario and act on it as quickly as you can. And if you're right or wrong, whatever, doesn't matter as long as you're alive. Just get yourself out of those situations.
Exactly. No rules. You talked before about Dean Stott, and he's got a very similar example. I know. Have you listened to his audiobook or read his book at all?
Yeah, yeah. I actually had him on my podcast, and he told the same story. So,
It's an
yeah,
amazing story. I think it's one of the best opening of any book I've ever read. I had him on last week. That show will publish, I think, next. But amazing story. Same thing. So maybe I'll delve into that with you. You're talking about being that heightened state. You see those ghosts because you both. Oh well, we know he did in one case. Um, how do you switch that off? Because you're super calm, you're chilled, you're humorous. How do you, or what knowledge can you impart to others of how to switch that off back into the real world, the civilian world that isn't full of so many threats?
um, I think the best what I preach to corporations and stuff is really about sensitizing and calibrating your mind, right? Um, it's real easy to try and look at everything. But one phrase I consistently coin is that if you try to see everything, you will see absolutely nothing, right? Our brains are not computers, right? They cannot aggregate all the information in an environment and then take that information and put it in the right folder. They just can't, right? So what you have to do is sensitize, okay, what are the threats? Once you identify the threats in that potential area, that GPS location, right? Then you go, all right, what are the signs and symptoms of those threats, right? So
Yeah.
now that's what you look for, right? And I always compare it to like surveillance. I'm always looking for surveillance. So it's the car that's been sitting there forever and leaves a puddle the size of the vehicle because they leave the AC, the air conditioning on, right? It just leaves water right where they were sitting. Or, some guys like to eat snacks when they're on surveillance. So it's the pile of peanut shells sitting outside the driver's side door window, or some people that do chewing tobacco, it's just spit. So there's all these signs and symptoms, but you can do that for pretty much anything: technical threats, health threats, raids, robbery, ransom type threats, the criminal factor, environmental threats like natural disasters. We all know what the signs and symptoms of those are. Some of the invisible stuff, like I was alluding to, agencies working against you, and then of course terrorism and their signs and symptoms. But I think that is ultimately the key to being alert, is all about familiar yourself, what to look for ahead of time instead of waiting until you're there to try you would get caught off guard. Is it still? Oh, yeah. Now you've got a whole other set of problems you got to figure out how to solve.
Yeah, I liken it to the when you're a soldier, the first time you're in. For us, it's the bush in New Zealand. For you, it's the woods. You can't see the forest for the trees because it's literally right there. And then you
Yeah.
learn to watch through. You learn to acclimatize to it. But yeah, that's a great way of putting it, Clint.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of easy, right? I mean, it's real easy to get overwhelmed when you try to like think about all of it, you know. And the reality is, you don't have to. You just need to know what's going on for that particular area at that particular time of year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, great point. Are they wearing a heavy coat in the middle of summer? Those sort of things.
Yeah.
You've got something else in common with Dean. You did 11,000 miles across the states. He did 14,000. I think he's beaten you, but he used a push bike.
Yeah. Yeah. He can have that. I'll drive. I'm okay with my adventure van. He can do the bicycle.
Awesome. And in your research for Escape the Wolf, that 11,000 miles you drove and getting the skills from all those different people. Did you learn a few things to add to your toolbox as well? I mean, one of them was your hero from childhood. What was it like?
Yeah, Stephen Hayes. It was pretty cool, right? To hear his story, and he's controversial, right? There's all these rumors that he was like banned from his wherever he learned ninjutsu in Japan and all that, but I don't care. Um, he had what amazed me about him is here he is 70 plus years old and he's still doing forward rolls and jumping around and just still a pretty decent athlete, for
Wow.
his age, you
Yeah.
know. And when you give him some throwing stars and like, okay, I'm gonna here in the flesh, I've got Stephen Hayes, the first American ninja, teaching me how to throw throwing stars. It's like, dude. I mean, as an '80s kid, you can't ask for a better dream come true.
Awesome.
So yeah, it was pretty cool.
Awesome. Yeah, it's funny. Those people with such a high skill level. I'll never forget. My I guess you call it unarmed combat in the New Zealand military. We call it close quarter battle. Basically, it's using your hands against all the weapons, and then also some knife work and bayonet and so on. But this guy his lineage is from the World War II Applegate Fairbairn hero, Jeff Todd in New Zealand. And I remember him telling a story, I think at a military combat course about, yeah, he gets all the certificates. Like you get a certificate from the Green Berets and this and that and that. And he just puts them in a drawer and puts them away. He doesn't put them on the wall. And we're hearing the story as a bunch of military guys. I get invited to his house. And we're going up the stairway, and outside is another door is just like a chest of drawers. And he's, oh yeah, check this out, and just opens up the door. It looks like nothing. He opens up the drawers, and it's stacked full of these certificates and framed things from all these units, and just puts it away. It's not even on display. And those people that are at that high level, they don't really need to show that like the peacock, like the performing seal at all.
Right. Yeah. I like that too. Like you don't. It's all. It to keep something special. You keep it to yourself, right? I saw. It's crazy. Social media, and I saw a meme. Go figure. But the meme was supposedly Bradley Cooper, and it's a quote from him. It's basically like, if you want to keep something special to you, don't post about it, don't talk about it, and because humans will poison it, right? I mean, he's pretty deliberate with his words, and I
Mm,
kind of paraphrased it and screwed it up, but you get the point. And I think that also applies. Like, it's okay to have what we call a love me wall, all your medals and all your stuff and, tokens of the past, but it's there, it's for you, and it's really not for anyone else because it's in your home and your office and no
yeah,
one else is going to see it.
exactly.
And I think that's what keeps it pretty special. And then one day when you kick the bucket, your family gets to kind of talk about it, carry it on, whatever happens.
Yeah, of course, of course. Um, well, it's been brilliant chatting with you, Clint. I really wanted to sort of paint the picture about you and what you have. I didn't want to steal the thunder from your books because they are phenomenal and you tell the stories so well, with the right kind of crazy. And it really is. I normally get the title for the show from a quote somebody said, but literally when I showed Jess your books, she said, "Well, that's the title right there, the right kind of crazy," because we think so differently, man, to civilians. I guess that's probably what I want to finish off on, and then we can wrap it up. Is dealing with the civilian world in your mindset. It might be different because you come from that grey role era, but what knowledge could you impart to everybody else about dealing with civilians, speaking to them, the language and so on, versus coming off the hardcore operator shooter style when these people are transitioning out?
That's a good question. I do make it very clear to guys that I'm still transitioning, right? I don't think the transition is something that has an end. You're constantly transitioning, especially the more time you did, the longer it's going to take for you to transition. I think that's number one.
Yeah.
So for me that did, 20 plus years, then, okay, I'm in year 6, 7 of retirement, and I'm getting better at being a civilian, but the reality is you still have those moments, right? So that's number one. Don't think it's just going to happen, come and go, and then that's it. And take your time. There's no rush to transition, you know. So take a moment, take a breath, take a beat, and think everything through, for every decision point you come across. There's no rush. There's no admiral, breathing down your neck. You don't have your buddies waiting on you. It's just you. Figure out what that decision point is, take a moment, and then decide. Do the research, read a book or two, get smart, and then you make your decision. And then I think the biggest piece with transition is making sure you're communicating with people. Make sure you're talking. If you find yourself at a low point, make sure you talk it out, right? You don't need to sit there and cycle that shit through your mind by yourself, So, I make sure I constantly talk. Heck, my book, The Right Kind of Crazy, was therapy in itself, right? Being able to put all that stuff on paper, talk about, your buddies who've died, and talk about the trauma that you've seen or faced or had to endure. Just talk about it, and talk about it as much as you need to in order to get to a good place. But I think that's the mistake, is ego and bravado kind of gets in the way, and some guys don't feel like they can talk about it, and then some guys don't know what it is, right? If you're having these bad days, they have a hard time pinpointing why.
Yeah.
And that's when you really need to talk to someone, right? And I'm not talking shrinks. You can talk to a buddy, you can talk to a girlfriend, a wife, but soon as you start saying, hey, I don't, man, I just cannot get this gloomy, dark cloud, from above me. And I feel like I'm always, on the verge of falling apart. Well, as soon as you start doing that, then you'll start feeling better immediately. But so that's it. Yeah. Have a plan, make sure you don't, feel like you got to rush into it, make sure you think through your decisions, and make sure you're always communicating.
Man, I love that you said that about transition. And the higher ranking guys that I interview do mention that you're always transitioning. It's not a, I used to think you finish the army on Friday, and you transition and start your new job on Monday, and we're done.
Yeah.
It's involvement. Shrek was the first one. John McPhee, interesting cat, and with those high-ranking guys, the sergeant majors, and I'm not sure what the Navy equivalent is. They've got some wisdom there because they got some time, so you need to listen to them. But it's brilliant what you said there, and it's a completely different part of you that we've seen from your books and so on. It's not linear. You do have those ups and downs, and if you're on the other side, if you're in a good position and one of your buddies communicates to you, they might not say, I'm reaching out for help, but the fact that they're actually initiating contact with you, that could be that they're asking for help that they're doing as well.
No, definitely. Yeah. I mean, anytime I have any of my buddies call, I take that moment you know, and just hear them first and make sure that it's not a cry for help, because you never know when that call's coming. It could happen. You know, I've seen it a bunch of times where you talk to someone and they are good to go, everything's great, and then like one of my friends, he was all smiles. It was a sunny day, you know, and then, you know, 2 days later was Christmas and they found him hanging for the rafters. You know, it's
Jeez.
like, it's just a strange, you know, it can be very strange, but you know, guys are consistently and constantly battling with something, and yeah, just making sure you're there for them is key.
It is. I learned that myself. I'll just quickly give this one for the audience, because at the end of most of these ones, the veteran shows, I love to say, if we've one thing we've said has helped one person, we've done our job, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. And sometimes you don't even know you're helping someone,
No, and
right?
that's exactly it. Thank you. So,
Yeah.
I was chatting on Messenger with one of my commando buddies back from the unit, and it was a quick chat. I'm a bit busy. And I said to him, "Hey man, if you ever need anything, reach out." And I went to close the laptop. I went, "Hang on a sec." I went, "Matt," I won't say his name, "Dude, I'm so sorry. Are you reaching out? You know, let's make some time right now," because that could have been him reaching out. And I just thought, as a guy saying, "Hey, how's it going? Saw your post, catching up." Take that moment, take that pause, check in. Um, so actually,
Yeah.
the two-word check-in is something I'm going to start doing with the show. We might as well throw it in here, and maybe again, it's something that somebody else can take away. But we're wrapping up. I learned this one a couple of weeks ago from a military guy over here. A two-word check-in on how you're doing. So let's throw it at you. Uh, 2 words, feeling words. How are you doing at the moment?
Right now,
Yeah.
um, I'm actually okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. But yeah, no, 2 words. Let's see. I mean, I'm tired because I've been traveling for almost 10 days straight.
Yeah.
And then but yeah, I'm not unhappy. So,
Yeah.
hey, I'm good.
Awesome. I likened it to those ink blot things you get thrown. What do you see? Because
Yeah.
it's a snapshot of where you are now, and I thought it was a powerful thing. Sometimes Jess and I do it to each other, but I thought it was a really cool way to literally, even for self-reflection, it's helpful as well. That two-word check-in of where you're at. So,
Yeah. Like,
dude, I'm really honored and thankful that you made the time to chat to me in this busy schedule of yours. You've so much gold in what we've had in the show for others, and it's just brilliant to watch your progress. I'm honored to have met you, and thank you for your books. They've helped a ton. I'm sure they're going to help a lot of other people. And yeah, I wish you all the success and things there, Clint.
hey, back at you. And thanks for the support. Thanks for the push. I really do appreciate that. It's great hanging out and talking to you, man.
Awesome. I'll hit pause. Thank you so much for your time.